Well, a 13-year-old boy could have been killed this past Friday. That is the word from Troy police today, who tell our Jerry Gretzinger that an officer had to draw his weapon outside of Troy High School when he saw the teen with a gun. The officer could have easily shot the young man, and as Jerry reports, would likely have been justified if he had.
Friday brought with it a great potential for tragedy.
Troy Police Captain John Cooney says there were tense moments outside Troy High School Friday afternoon when an officer spotted a couple young kids handling a gun. Specifically, Officer Charles Castle saw one of them
Tuck the handgun into his waistband, basically out in the open in full company of all the other students.
Castle pursued the 13-year-olds until they weren't as close to the school and told them to get down on the ground. The boy without the gun took off, but the boy with the weapon...
Surprisingly and disturbingly, the response from the student was to pull the gun from his waistband.
Officer Castle drew his weapon but did not fire and continued to command the boy to get down.
The subject did acquiesce at one point and jumped behind a car, throwing the gun away from his body.
Turns out the weapon that nearly cost the student from Troy's alternative learning program his life was a pellet gun, which was nearly impossible to distinguish from the real thing.
For the purposes of comparison, that's just amazing.
The boys were both arrested and charged in the family court system. Cooney says the threat of pellet guns being mistaken for the real thing is worse than ever. Here's a collection of pellet guns they've taken off the streets recently for a variety of reasons. Any of them enough to cause an officer to fire when facing one.
The guns are ridiculously real looking these days. The gun involved in this, without any question, would be a gun that every officer would have the right and reason to ascertain as a threat.
Why would a 13-year-old be carrying one to school? Cooney says the boy had it with him all day, likely for street cred.
We need to send a message to our youth that these guns are recipes for disaster.
Jerry Gretzinger, CBS 6 News.
Captain Cooney says he applauds Officer Castle's patience, but says an officer can only hesitate for so long before risking his own and others' safety.